Hello and welcome to the Crypto Club and Digital Assets weekly catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday the 24th December 2023, and as is always the case, we never quite know what we're going to be talking about. We hold these meetings every week, every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m, and everyone's welcome to join, whether you're a novice or an expert. As a result, it means we get to talk about some really interesting stuff, either at the really basic level, if you're just beginning to learn about crypto, or if you're running a project and you want to share details about it, this is the place to be. If you'd like to know more about DeFi, blockchain, crypto, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGs, any other three-letter acronym really, if you're building up your knowledge about this whole space, then this is definitely the session to join. We end up talking about whatever the audience want to talk about. So some weeks we might be talking about the Metaverse or NFTs. Some weeks we talk about regulation, CBDCs, any other news that's going on really. And we'll try and include sessions around cryptocurrency prices, market developments, market news, anything else. So hopefully there's going to be something for everybody in the session. So stick around, do carry on watching. Importantly as well, do remember to subscribe, like, make comments on the video. Even more important, come along to a future session. Details are in the link below. Anyway, with that, let's see who's going to come and join us today. Hey, Hugo.
Hi Gary, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
But you haven't got a Santa hat on today.
I was about to say first things first. The only thing is, this is not my actual Santa hat. It's my little one's.
Oh, brilliant.
But I managed to get it just now. And I do have one. I just don't have it with me at the moment.
Fantastic. I don't have one at all.
But you have a red sweater, so
exactly. Yeah. And I put some red lights on in the background as well. Yeah. So that's great.
So yeah, my hat might be falling off. I did get my hat.
Excellent. Well, a festive celebration, a happy Christmas, a happy New Year to you.
Yeah, same to everyone.
So have you been watching what's been going on in the crypto world this week?
Yeah. I'm always on two timelines. One is what's been going on in terms of, especially the markets and Bitcoin going up and everything. Mm-hmm. And also some of the things that we discussed last time about like the account abstraction and things like that, which I think run in parallel at the end of the day. But yeah, crypto, basically what I've seen is a lot of people happy, and the word is not mocking, but actually but I think the right term is like with that enthusiasm that we hadn't seen in a long time, as in Bitcoin is about 40,000, and I think it reached 44,000 at some point and so on. Yeah. But again, I think that drives enthusiasm for a lot of other things beyond Bitcoin.
I think the thing that worries me a little bit at the moment is that it almost feels a little bit like what happened at the end of 2017, which for those who've been into crypto for a while may recall that Bitcoin actually made it just before Christmas, I think it was, to $69,000. And it almost feels as though we might be about to see a replay of that. Because everyone who was into that space at the time remembers what happened just after that, when it dropped from 69,000 to, I think it was about 23,000 or something. So anyway, we'll see. Hey, Elena's joined us as well. Hi, Elena.
Hi, Gary. Hello, Hugo.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Do you have a Christmas hat to wear today, Elena?
Oh my God.
Do you dress up like Santa Claus?
I might have it somewhere in the house.
Not to worry. It's just last week people were asking me if we were going to hold this call or not, and I said yes, we will do, even though it's Christmas Eve in some areas, I guess. I said yeah, but you can dress up if you wish. So good enough, Hugo has got his young child's Christmas hat on, which is fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, Hugo, coming back to your point about crypto and that kind of thing. I do find it interesting, as you say, Bitcoin's gone up. It did hit 44. It's dropped back down to, I think it's about 43.6 or something at the moment. But we just look at the where we're actually at. Yeah, $43,639. Did peak up earlier on today. It was like 43.8. I think a few days ago, it was, as you say, it was certainly on the region of 44,000, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I'm just curious, because it does just feel as though it might be about to get really exciting, particularly with the announcements that are due from the US SEC about the Bitcoin ETFs, of which there are several applications that are in play. And the rumor is that we'll hear an announcement. I think the 10th of January seems to be the favorite date people are talking about at the moment, but it might be anywhere between the 6th of January and the 16th, I think it is. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, no, just to actually that's also what I've been reading, like in terms of the reasons behind the current rally and so on. Actually, even The Economist had an article about that, and they were saying, of course, like several things that are driving this. One is that several let's call it the SEC and governments and so on have tried to kill some forms of certain things, right? And it says, but Bitcoin is still there, and it's precisely because it was designed to survive, in a decentralized ways and so on. And the other one, they were saying, of course, the ETFs that you're mentioning. And one thing that, again, my opinion, well, it's actually The Economist's opinion, I just happen to share it in this case, is that it's a different type of asset, right? And it's correlated to certain stocks, more technology stocks in general and so on, but not to the overall market. So basically that's one way, or for some people that's enough to say, what, I want to have this type of asset which is not as correlated as other assets to the rest of the assets that I hold. So it's a way of diversifying. So yeah, let's see what happens. I'm not in the business of predicting what's going to happen with the stock market or prices or anything. There's a part of me that says, I heard a phrase that whenever there's like a new bubble or something, people will say this time is different. I don't think this time is different. There's always something different. I don't think we can predict what's going to happen. But overall, what I'm seeing is that there's more and more and more interest. That's all I can say. How will that play out in terms of price? I have no idea. But that's the one thing that I see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I never offer price predictions, generally because I'm usually wrong. And so there's not much value in doing that. But certainly, if you look at what's going on, you've got things like the various ETF applications that are going on. You've also got, in Bitcoin's case, you've got Bitcoin halving that's scheduled for April of 2024. And in the past, that has had a impact on prices. And I'll hold my hand up now, and I will predict that it won't have as much of an impact on prices this time as it has done previously. And the reason I say that is because once something becomes predictably cyclic in some way, then more and more people get into the market earlier and earlier, and then they leave it earlier and earlier. So it kind of kills off the effectiveness of that. So we'll see anyway, but I just get a feeling that the market has changed. I think the crypto market, the community who are buying crypto now are different to the people who were buying crypto 4 years ago, 8 years ago, and so on. Because there is more and more institutional money coming into the space. There's more and more traditional investors coming into the space, and they behave differently. And so I do think it's going to be so we'll see. But you're right. Every time people always say, "Oh, this time it's different," except it isn't. So we'll see anyway. And so you've just been joined by Johannes as well. Hey, Johannes. Oh, they're staying on mute for now anyway. No.
Apologies, Gary. Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting there. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. Excuse me. So, Merry Christmas all. Apologies for joining late. It was really sad to miss last week's one as well. I somewhat caught up, but I haven't finished all of it yet. But
okay.
Yes.
Well, for those who don't know, we do the recordings each week, and I get a surprising number of people who speak to me and say, "Oh, watch the recordings afterwards." It's great to know that, because it means not only do we get an interesting session going now, but then it also acts as a kind of a data bank, a knowledge pool for people to go back to. So that's fantastic, and it's always good when people say, "Oh yeah, I'll watch the recording or I'll skip through." The great thing about the recording is that you can play it back at 1.5 times speed or faster, which means it doesn't take as long to watch it.
Forward to catch up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what's new then, Johannes? Anything happening of interest on your side?
Unfortunately, I'm not. There's just a lot of like personal things have been happening. I guess it's never a good time, but kind of been planning for this bull run all year, and I've kind of been sidelined for many reasons, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I've been trying my best to keep up, and yeah, I don't know what you guys were talking about before, and I kind of, like I said, I kind of got what was what you discussed last week, but I would like to bring up the DePIN space. I'm really getting into that, and I've been following that for the last year or so anyway. And I was wondering how much, I guess, the community here and yourself know about DePIN and what your thoughts are.
So what do you mean by DePIN?
Yeah, so DePIN is decentralized physical physical infrastructure.
Okay.
One of the prominent ones a couple of years ago, you may have heard of a project called Helium, which basically you buy these hotspots, and the idea was to connect IoT, the Internet of Things. It hasn't worked out well primarily because they've not managed to get many clients for it. But I strongly believe going forward that there will be some pickup there. But they have pivoted away to mobile, so that's gone really, really well for them. I don't think it's as much of an issue for us in the UK because I think our data plans regarding our mobile phones aren't that expensive, but in America, I believe it is. And they've got a $20 plan where you can use it all around the country.
Okay.
And again, they've got people purchasing these hotspots. They've teamed up with T-Mobile. And wherever there are kind of black spots or where there isn't coverage, you've got the community or the people's internet, as they call it, filling in those gaps. And there's also a project that I'm very involved. Well, as a consumer, I guess I'm involved in, called HiveMapper, and they are basically trying to eat Google Maps lunch in a sense, and that's gone really, really well. The price has done really well. I don't like to talk about prices though, but the technology is the cameras are fantastic, and they also provide freshness, as they call it, because obviously Google can only do certain roads. They can only map them so many times in a year, or if it's in a rural area, maybe even once every couple or 3 years. But if you've got the community, and I guess this is why we're all into crypto and decentralized, all of that, and then you've got I think at the moment there's 30,000 contributors or mappers all around the world. They've managed to map was it 15%? I might be exaggerating that though. 15, I think 5% of the world's roads. They've got 6 million unique kilometers. So it's done really well in under a year, and I think Google, it took them years to achieve that, and they managed to do that in under a year. But that's the power of decentralization and getting the community and the people to do that. So yeah.
And I guess because I was curious, I wasn't familiar with that. But by HiveMapper, you mean as in a community of Hive-minded people, as opposed to Hive, the doorbell ring type thing. Yeah. Okay. I was curious for a moment because I know there have been projects about linking Hive doorbells together, because if you've got all of the intelligence that's coming out of all the images on the Hive doorbells that everybody's got, that produces some quite interesting data that you can use. So it's a bit like a few years ago, there was an earthquake just outside of San Francisco in California. And what usually happens with earthquakes is the US Geological Society goes away, looks at all of its sensors and everything, and it works out where the epicenter is. Okay, and it usually takes them a few days to work that out or whatever. And a company that you may have heard of, I think it was Fitbit. Okay, so device tracker, like this, but I think this might be one of them. They actually had a go at figuring out where the epicenter was because they had all the members who've got Fitbits on who were woken up at a certain time of day by the earthquake, and they were able to pinpoint by looking at a certain time of day which of their members were suddenly woken up. And they came out and they said something like, within a couple of hours, we think the epicenter is Sacramento. I think it was Sacramento anyway. And sure enough, the Geological Society a few days later came back and said, yep, you were right. So it shows how these devices, whether it's like a phone ringer or whatever, it's kind of interesting. So sorry, it's just with you mentioning Hive, I was just thinking it from that context. I guess also with what you're describing there, that's not too dissimilar to, there is a project I am a bit more familiar with called World Mobile Token. And that is really interesting. I was just digging out the white paper earlier, in fact, because that's looking at some interesting stuff around providing telephony and that kind of thing. Well, I'll just go back to HiveMapper. I just found their website, actually. It looked really interesting because it's showing what their coverage is at the moment.
That's the one.
So this looks really interesting. It looks like they've got fairly good coverage in North America and Europe.
That's right, and also
and parts of Australia.
Yeah, and primarily they started off in the Philippines as well, and yeah, it's primarily like major cities. That's how they started out, which makes sense, obviously. That's probably where you're going to have most of the clients as well. And yeah, it's similar to what you were speaking about in regards to collecting various data points as well. This would be very useful for like councils. At the moment, it is primarily just to map the roads and to create freshness for the roads. But you can assume in future things like potholes, so local councils and all that would see live and see how maybe a particular stretch of road is deteriorating or getting worse, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, there's so many things that they can expand on in future. At the moment, we can see they've got quite a few clients because they've created these things called bursts, so to incentivize people to drive through certain parts. So a client may want a stretch of road to be mapped maybe daily, and for that reason you'll have these like yellow bursts show up where they incentivize, I guess, drivers to drive those roads to get more honey. So the token that they have is called Honey, which obviously ties in with the whole kind of HiveMapper beehive thing. And yeah, so that's where it's at the moment. But yeah, they can expand on it so much more. And I know Ryan Selskis from Masari has been really talking up as well for the past year. They're really big into the whole kind of DePIN. I think they coined the term DePIN as well. Not the greatest probably acronym, but I guess it works for now. Yeah, and there's quite a few institutions into it, and it's all built on top of Solana as well, or they use the Solana protocol in regards to that, and Helium has also migrated to Solana. So there's a lot of there's a lot of DePIN stuff happening on Solana there. There are also other other projects such as Demo has got a bit of traction. So you get like this little device that you hook up into your car, and then it downloads all these analytics from your car, which you can also use for like insurance purposes, etc. So yeah, I guess it's IoT in general. It's really fascinating, and yeah, and especially if they kind of align with the whole kind of crypto ethos of decentralization, and obviously like privacy aspects as well. I'm all for it. I think it is great, and you mentioned obviously other projects that had that even previously. So yeah,
but I think it's fascinating. I keep saying that having been a blockchain kind of evangelist and supporter for many years, but also an enthusiastic of emerging technologies, I think the real power is when you get blockchain as where you store the data, AI where you analyze the data, and IoT where you capture the data. I see that as the new triangle of forces. I've sometimes described it as the new holy trifecta type thing of IoT for creating data, blockchain for capturing it, and AI for analyzing it. I think that offers some amazing possibilities. as you were describing some of the things that it's interesting as well. You were talking about cars. I was on a meeting earlier on. A lot of people don't realise that most modern cars now have a SIM card in them in some way. In fact, probably even more. So actually, cars are a form of IoT device. So Mercedes and BMW, I think it was around about the year 2000, they started putting SIM cards into their cars. So as you say, that then means that you can capture telematics data about where the vehicle's been, how fast it's gone, how it accelerates, decelerates. And there was a growth, certainly in Europe for a while, around vehicle telematic insurance. So there were companies like Insure the Box, which was where you actually took a telematics device. So it was a dedicated little unit, and you installed it in the car, and that did all the things that you're describing of tracking driver behavior and that.
Black box, I think, or is that something different?
There's been a few. It's been interesting that because I did a little bit of work in this space, and it was interesting how different countries did or didn't adopt the technology. And it's kind of curious that in the UK, vehicle telematic insurance hasn't grown at the pace they were expecting. Whereas in Italy, apparently it really became popular very, very quickly. And this is to do with male egos, surprisingly, because it turns out that Italian male drivers love the idea that these devices record their driving behavior because it means they can go, see just how good a driver I am.
Yeah.
So apparently in Italy, particularly with young males, it was very, very popular. Whereas in the UK, it was less so because typically if you're using a telematics device, it's because your insurance policy is very expensive. And your insurance policy is expensive because you're a young driver and you drive fast cars or whatever. And so it was interesting on that. But the whole connection with blockchain starts getting really interesting because then you can do things like you can have a smart contract that can activate or deactivate the insurance. Yeah. So it's only active while the vehicle's moving, for example. And then, as you say, linking in tokens with that makes it a fascinating proposition. So, yeah, interesting stuff. I'll look forward to more of this in 2024 as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to propose to maybe have, what do you call it, the 180 seconds or just
yeah.
Also, I'll be happy to do that. It's a space that's really fascinated me, and I like your trifecta analogy because I think you're spot on. Apart from stable coins, I think we're having, and I guess DeFi to a certain extent, we are having an issue to trying to find like product market fit in regards to crypto at the moment, and I just see this as a no-brainer because it's already kind of happening.
And it's where it surprises me in a way that IOTA, which is a kind of a blockchain type protocol, which was designed originally for IoT devices. So IOTA, IoT analytics and that kind of thing. And that was a blockchain type protocol, which was actually specifically designed around IoT devices, if I remember correctly. And I'm surprised that hasn't grown more rapidly than it has. So we'll see. But it's fascinating.
Yeah, I see their logo behind on your board there as well. So I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done. They had loads of partnerships. I guess the crypto partnerships, as we've kind of found out, mean nothing in most cases. But I remember in 2017, it's like Bosch, I think Mercedes, and all these companies, and I had high hopes for that as well. But they had a big announcement. I think they've moved to Dubai recently, or Dubai, the consortium and country of giving them like 30 million or something like that to build out something there. So maybe.
Okay. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and it's probably another example of how it is that these things always take longer than you expect.
Yeah.
But what was it? I think it was Bill Gates, who came out with the expression a number of years ago about technology. It always takes longer than you expect to get implemented, where it then always has a bigger impact than you expect as well. So I think it's going to be game changing. So we've just been joined by JT as well. Hey, JT.
Hi guys, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Hey, you going to come on with your Santa hat?
Sorry?
I thought you were going to come. I thought you were going to come on with your camera with your Santa outfit or something for a moment.
No, I look pretty bad at the moment. I had this week coronavirus, so the same one you got.
Okay.
So it's kind of a recovering at the moment.
Oh, well, I wish you a speedy recovery. That's good. So let's stick to the crypto side then rather than the COVID side, although they both start with letter C. Any news or interesting stuff at the moment, JT?
No, really. Everybody seems to be happy with the current markets, so everything else looks the same, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I think Hugo and I were chatting right at the beginning that you're right that the market seems quite good at the moment. Bitcoin's around about $43,600 and has been rising quite nicely. You've got the SEC decision around Bitcoin ETFs due in the next few weeks. You've got the Bitcoin halving in April 2024. Everything looks quite good, but for some reason, I was saying before, it feels a little bit like 2017 to me. Funnily enough, Christmas time 2017, when prices were going up and everyone was happy, and that was where Bitcoin hit $69,000 and then fell off a cliff and dropped right back. For some reason, it just feels like there's going to be an unpleasant surprise like that's going to come up. So we'll see anyway.
20,000 and 2017, 18, yeah, the 20,000.
Was it 20? I'm trying to remember. When was it that it hit 69 then?
2021, November 2021.
Okay. Was it round about Christmas time where it dropped away as well?
Yeah, and then obviously we had the horrible 2022 and then FTX November 2022, and then now we had this year, which is, I guess, I think the reason is because there's a lot of silly projects and the whole kind of meme coins and all that just doing absolutely crazy numbers, and I think that's why a lot of, I guess, maybe mature people, and I guess a lot of people were also sidelined as well because we've still got the PTSD from like last year in the bear market, and I think that's probably why there's quite a bit of apprehension, and it kind of feels a bit too good to be true. And everyone's been waiting for this dip, and it hasn't really come yet as well. So,
so you're absolutely right. I just pulled the chart up as we were chatting there, and you're right. 2017, around about Christmas time, Bitcoin hit this new record around about $19,000. I think it may well have just about clipped on 20, as you say. And then in the new year, it like dropped away really significantly, went down to about 7. So it really had a massive pullback. And then again, in 2020, we had this point where it absolutely spiked over Christmas time and went up from like 26 up to, what's that? Can't even see it because the thing's in the way now. But certainly it rose several $1,000s, again dropped away. And then you've got this next big spike in November, December 2021, as you say, where that's where it suddenly really went up to $69,000 and then plummeted. So there's definitely something about Bitcoin in particular and crypto Christmases. So maybe that's why I feel nervous about it.
I guess because I remember being around obviously in 2017, and obviously it was a lot more quieter. So at the time it was like, all right, it's the Chinese New Year, and that was going to like pump it into 2018, which didn't really come. And I guess it's a seasonality thing. I guess the assumption could be you've got loads of people meeting for Thanksgiving, so loads of families and all that coming together. They'll be talking about that, and then kind of inspire them to maybe buy. And then obviously the same thing happens over Christmas as well. So you got loads of people like dipping in. So, but who knows?
Yeah. I think you might be right. The Christmas effect might be that it's a lot of very bored people who've had a little bit too much to drink who go, "Whoa, this looks like fun," inadvertently put a 0 too many into the please submit funds and go for it from there. We'll see anyway. But interesting stuff.
We if we're gonna compare, we need to compare with previous cycles, isn't it? So if you look back 4 years ago, was 2019. Yeah, that's where we should compare because the halving was 2020. So if you look back at 2019, Christmas time, it was not very good. So I think we are in a specific. It's very, very different. I don't think we when we look back, this was the first. We will see this is the first time that the cycles kind of don't match anymore.
Yep.
And it's because of all the craziness around people waiting for the ETFs to be approved. You know, as soon as they have BlackRock's back in June said they're going to lodge. They did lodge, yeah, the ETF.
Yeah.
Then of course the markets, if you look back, was from I think from end of April, beginning of May onwards, start to go crazy. You know.
Yeah. And I think you're right. This is what I've long held this belief when people talk about Bitcoin halving every 4 years, almost guarantees like a price bump and that kind of thing. But I think that the market back in 2017 and 2018, where it was like around about 20,000, dropped to 7,000, and the market in 2021, where it rent went up to $69,000, and that, I think we are in a different market. I think it's different people now have moved into it. And it's fascinating as well. You look at the data on this chart, which is showing the volumes as well. And you can see that, in 2022, parts of 2023, the volumes shown at the bottom of the chart were growing and growing and growing. And now we've gone back to not far off from the kind of like the volumes of 2020. So it feels like it's stabilized and settled down in some way. So we'll see. It's all guesswork. As someone, I'm trying to remember the quote someone was using last week, where they said that crypto charting is horoscopes for men. I think they described it as, because we're looking at these candles going up and down, and it's just like predicting a horoscope. It's just a lot more men seem to do it than women. Women give Elena due credits, tend to be a lot more rational and composed about thinking about these things, whereas men go, "Ooh, isn't that pretty? It's gone up or down or whatever." So we'll see where we go in 2024. So any other news from anybody at the moment? Anyone hearing any other things? It was interesting. Thanks, Johannes, for sharing about Hive and DePIN, I think you described it as, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah, DePIN, HiveMapper, and then obviously you're right, Hive is another project as well, but HiveMapper and DePIN, yeah, DePIN. Yeah.
Great, another acronym for me to learn for the new year. So
it's never ending in our space. It's just yeah.
Well, this is what happens in any industry that's led by marketing people as opposed to technology people. Marketing people like to come up with new names all the time, so that's good. So, Elena, just coming back to you for a moment. Earlier on, were you about to ask a question when we got onto something else?
Yeah, but
it's gone away. The moment has passed.
No, it was really interesting to listen to Johannes. And I hope Johannes will be back in the new year with your 180 seconds speech. That would be interesting.
Do you want to do that now, Johannes? Do you want to do 3 minutes on DePIN?
I feel a little bit unprepared. I'm glad there's interest in it, so I appreciate that, Elena, as well. So, but yeah, I'll be more than happy to do it in the new year if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Definitely welcome that.
That's great. Well then, can we return to something that we were speaking previously? And this might seem like a random question, but there is a reason.
Okay.
Gary, you said that the community, you were talking about buying crypto, and you said that the community now is not the same as it used to be 4 years ago. So
yep.
I meant to ask straight away, what's the community today and what did it used to be? But then Johannes appeared. Now that I had this delay with my question, I would also like to throw in some more questions. What was the community back when Bitcoin just appeared? What type of people were buying Bitcoin? And how has it changed up to now? Also, with the price fluctuations, do the same people buy Bitcoin when it becomes cheaper, or are there like different types of people? And do only professionals buy Bitcoin, or people like me? And does it also, if it is so, does it mean that the wide adoption of Bitcoin has finally started? Thank you.
Yeah, and Johannes, I agree completely. As always, Elena is the superstar of asking wonderfully simple but really thought-provoking questions. So I'll throw in my perspective to begin
Guys,
with.
sorry, I just want to say I have to go. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Okay, bye bye.
JT, all the best. I'll throw in a perspective to begin with of why I think the community is different and so on, how it's changed. And that's because when we take a look at crypto ownership, it has grown massively. So you think about, in 2010, how many people had even heard of Bitcoin, let alone owned Bitcoin. It was very, very few indeed. And then from 2010 to 2020, there was a massive growth as the hype built up. People became more aware of it. But even in 2020, I was running presentations and lectures and that, where I'd ask the audience, okay, hold your hand up if you own crypto in some way. And back in 2018, I would guess, depending upon which audience I was with, 5 to 10% of the audience would have crypto. And I was quite surprised that it was that high at that stage. And usually it was, if I was running an event where it was like a younger audience, so quite often students, for example, so university students, quite a few of those would be into crypto already. It's quite normal to them. And in fact, if you got them to hold their hands up and say, do you own crypto? Anywhere up to half the room, the hand would go up. If you then said, do you have a pension plan? No hands would go up. If you said, do you own shares? No hands would go up. Whereas if you then went, I was at an insurance conference where, again, I asked the same question, hold your hand up if you own any crypto. And in a room full of I think it was about 300 to 400 people, only my hand went up. So but that's a more mature, older audience. Over time, the adoption of Bitcoin ownership has grown and grown. So I can't even remember what the numbers are for the UK now, but it might be something like 20% of the UK claim to own Bitcoin or something. And if we take a look at the number of wallets that there are, which is kind of a proxy for how many crypto owners there are on that. I don't have the chart to hand, but it's growing. But if you have a look at the really large Bitcoin holder wallets, so this is from August, so a few months old, and there's these really, really big wallets which hardly seem to move anything, and like 50,000 Bitcoin in it. That doesn't go anywhere. But then if you move down this list, this is where it gets really interesting. Did you know that one of the biggest known holders of crypto is the US government? Which is mind-blowing. The US Department of Justice, so they seize crypto assets and they occasionally sell them off. So the FBI, the Department of Justice, various others are actually some of the biggest holders of crypto. But then you look at the next ones down, Grayscale, Block One, MicroStrategy, they started purchasing crypto a few years ago. And so now you've got institutional grade investments in it, which we didn't have a few years ago. And then you've got the Bitcoin whales, the Winklevoss twins, Tim Draper, Michael Saylor's the former CEO, but still chairman at MicroStrategy. He's got a load of Bitcoin as MicroStrategy. And then you look at the distribution of how many people hold. We're talking about Bitcoin here, but it's kind of representative of others as well. We can see that there's very, very few large holders, but then there's millions of tiny holders. So the reason I'm saying that the market has changed is I think over time, the big holders are growing. And that's kind of developing. So I don't know if anyone got any other thoughts?
I would add, and just to complement what you're saying, Gary, but I think it's really interesting and essentially I agree. The way I look at it and the framework that I use is the technology adoption life cycle, which talks about the early adopters first and then the early majorities and so on. And I think this is why I was thinking when you were talking about the volumes and the price of Bitcoin and so on, one metric that we'll probably be looking at is how many people are actually using it, right? Or adopting it or buying it. But then you have this brilliant chart with the number of wallets and so on, which is still a proxy. My view, again, I might be wrong, is yeah, I mean, at the beginning, you use Bitcoin because it's cool, right? And that's the definition of an early adopter. This technology is cool. I might not be able to do something very useful with it, but it's it's decentralized and it's cool and nobody can take it away. It's a bit philosophical, let's call it that, right? But then, yeah, the early majority starts becoming more pragmatic, and it's either, well, I have a use case for this. I mentioned, for example, like using stablecoins in certain countries in which the currency is not very stable. That's a very good use case, right? Or sending money from the US to Mexico, remittances, things like that. And you start getting some of those. But yeah, then it needs to become easier and remove a lot of the friction and more useful. And I think that's what the whole point with the ETFs is. Basically, the way I understand it is a lot of people will be able to invest part of the pension funds in Bitcoin without having to go through all the trouble of setting up a wallet and then purchasing, doing the whole thing through an exchange and so on. So I think it's that. The key that's my view, but I think it's consistent with what you said. The really interesting part for me is there's a tipping point somewhere at some point, and I think it's somewhere between 20-25%, in which you're very, very close to that mainstream adoption. I think it varies, and Bitcoin is I think it's more complex than that. But I think there's a point in which it becomes like normal. It becomes so easy to use, and it becomes so normal, and you see other people around you getting Bitcoin. The example you were talking about, people in Thanksgiving and so on, and then it becomes the norm, and then it's a little bit of, at some point it becomes like fear of missing out. Not in terms of price and so on, but what I mean is it does become like the normal thing to do, and I think that's what the ETFs are doing. I think we are going to need many more things like that, but I think that will be the path, right, for it to be something that a majority of the population would do.
You muted yourself.
Thanks, Johannes. That's so 2020 doing that. Johannes, actually, you actually put in the comments Silk Road. Do you mean Silk Road, the crypto mining company, or Silk Road, the original dark web thing?
Oh no, the dark web. Yeah, when you were talking about the seized assets. So yeah, it's that was primarily it, wasn't it? So.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I was just quickly looking for some other charts as well that show crypto ownership, and there was an interesting one that I came across. If I can share it here, this really surprises me at times when you look at different countries and just what percentage of their population have crypto, because you wouldn't expect the top crypto, mind you, this is back in 2018, admittedly, as Turkey or Romania or Poland, that kind of thing. So I think this is a little bit out of date now, but it is interesting, that even back in 2018, so that's 5 years ago, we reckon that the UK had about 6%. I think it's double that now. But some of the countries much, much higher. I'll try and find a more up-to-date chart than that, actually.
Yeah, because I think in the more recent ones you'll see, I guess, Nigeria and quite a few kind of Latin American countries and African countries in there as well. Obviously, with inflation, that's become a bigger use case. those countries and those citizens understand it a lot better than I guess us privileged in the West. And there are a lot more use cases there. I think to another point that Elena made earlier as well is regarding like holders. Glassnode, unfortunately, I don't have any of the charts in front of me. Glassnode have a great charts where they have how many bitcoins have been hodled, and then it's the whole kind of shrimp or fish, shrimp, whales, etc., and all that. So in kind of proportions, it's similar to the chart that or the numbers that you showed earlier, and yeah, I guess in simple terms, it's around 80% of Bitcoin is being hodled. And that's another effect as well, I guess, going forward in regards to the price and obviously the scarcity as well.
Yeah, it's a try. I'm just trying to look at Glassnode, but it's only showing me previews of the paid-for enterprise plan, which is a shame. I thought there was actually some interesting insights that it had.
Yeah, it does get a bit technical, but I would recommend that to, I guess, anyone or Elena as well. Checkmate, he's yeah, he does like a weekly, he uploads on YouTube every week, and it's pretty insightful. I would recommend that, even if you're just kind of like getting started, and if you're genuinely interested in kind of the behaviors and how Bitcoin's moving around or not moving, transactions, etc. It's always very useful.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I just pulled up Glassnode just now to just take a quick look at some things they're saying, and it's just the saying, okay, so Bitcoin's up 172%, which is interesting, but it's this thing where it says long-term holders currently hold a near all-time high. So that certainly seems to be that the whole hodler mentality continues to grow, or it's that more and more people are just forgetting what their seed phrases are or whatever, and they've lost their private keys. We don't always know. But I seem to remember it might have been Glassnode that they used to do a really good thing on the number of inactive wallets. So that was potentially where people have bought something and then they've forgotten how to log in, or they've lost the device or something. So yeah, interesting. So Elena, coming back to your original point, really, about the changing community, it's that I think it is that there's a much wider community to start with. It's now many more millions of people around the world, different countries as well. So I pulled up a chart briefly before, which was showing how the Far East, particularly I think it was Vietnam, Thailand, I know certainly South Korea is really active. They've been growing in the crypto space quite significantly over the last few years. And a lot of that is linked in with gaming as well. So this is where you keep seeing new offshoots off pure play cryptocurrencies to things like DeFi, gaming, Metaverse, NFTs. There's this whole kind of diversity. So you can go to NFT events where people are just into it because of the artwork, which is by its very nature a completely different market to the people who are buying crypto because they want the price to go up. And it's fascinating on that. And the other area I didn't mention is around things like real world asset tokenization, which I think almost every week we end up talking about that now, that the opportunity to start tokenizing financial instruments or property ownership or fine art or whatever means that there's another market in crypto adoption that's growing that's got nothing to do with the price of the cryptocurrency, but it's actually how it's being used. So I think there's loads of stuff going on.
I think it's also important to raise. Yeah, it genuinely was fantastic questions, Elena, and because I love like looking back at things now, especially obviously with hindsight. It's also important to know, obviously, when Bitcoin started, it was meant to be more of a payment system, and then obviously now it's become more of a store of value. So that changes behaviors as well. Obviously, you had things like Lightning come about, which hasn't necessarily been successful, but that's also affected. I guess if you had got into Bitcoin in 2010, over the years, you've seen how it's progressed, and you've seen other cryptos come about, and it's become more of the store of value. So you're not going to necessarily transact with it as it was, I guess, initially intended. It's not right or wrong, but that also has an effect on behaviors and obviously going forward on the price and how it's perceived as well.
You got the other thing as well of changing economic situations, and this comes back. I think we were talking right at the beginning of this session about the correlation between crypto prices and other assets. So whether that's shares or gold or the S&P 500, and crypto has got a low degree of correlation. In fact, so correlation is effectively if something goes up in price, does the other product go up by a similar price, and can it be predictable such that if this goes up, then the other thing will always go up in that. So that means it's highly correlated. Crypto has a low level of correlation with other things. So sometimes like gold can go up in price and crypto can go down, or shares can go up in price and so does crypto, and then it doesn't, and so on. And some of it links in with what's known as a fear and greed index, which is really interesting, which is to do, there's actually a product called the VIX index, I think it is, which is the uncertainty and fear factor. And what you find is that typically certain financial instruments, when people are fearful, go up better than others. So the old thing is like, if people think that the world's about to end and there's going to be economic collapse, people tend to buy into gold and precious metals and that kind of thing. When the world's a little bit safer, they buy into property and so on. And crypto tends to be a kind of like a fear type thing, that when there's a high level of uncertainty in the world, crypto tends to do quite well, but not always. So maybe we've got more fear in the world at the moment for some strange reason. So all sorts of things later.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, so we've got less than 10 minutes left. So I'm going to flip this session around now. I'm going to ask everybody, because we've had a really interesting 2023. I'm going to ask people for their predictions for what to watch out for in 2024. So I'm not looking for specific cryptocurrencies or tokens or whatever. General thoughts, what do you think is going to happen in 2024? Go on, Hugo, you were smiling as you were listening to that. So I'm going to pick on you and ask for your predictions.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to ask Elena and then Johannes.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'll preface this by saying I'm an optimist by nature, right? I think we will begin to see more, and very in line with what we've been discussing today, is I think we're going to begin to reach to that different community or different set of users who are going to be more focused on practical use cases or process and the UX and the way of getting crypto being much, much, much simpler. So I think it's going to generate much more adoption than the initial use case for crypto, which was trading and trying to get, gains that you cannot probably get in the traditional market anymore. So yeah, as always, an optimist. That's what I think will happen. Like that, we are getting close. I don't know if 2024 will be the tipping point, but we're getting closer to that tipping point where it will become more normal for people to own crypto in all different forms. But especially with use cases like the examples that Johannes was talking about, all the different things that we've been saying, people investing part of the pension funds, real world assets, all those things, we're getting closer to them. And the one thing finally is, I remember there was an interview with Mark Andreessen saying, a lot of people say, oh, this doesn't work yet. And there are other things that don't work yet. It says, but for an engineer or technologist, it says, well, that's just a list of problems that I need to fix, right? And then you get on fixing them. So that's my prediction for 2024. We will see a lot more people talking about crypto. Actually, maybe not even talking about crypto, maybe talking about blockchain, or even better, particular solutions that don't even mention crypto, ideally.
That sounds good. Elena, go for it, because you've built up an incredible knowledge over the last year, I think, about this space. What do you think is going to happen in 2024?
As I have a biased answer. As I was I've been studying the Metaverse over the last months, and actually every session here that I missed, over the last months was due to pending assignments. You understand? I would say I would love, and I really hope that the adoption of NFTs will start or will continue to go in NFTs, in art, in real estate, in provenance, in any areas, because this is such a convenient instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Metaverse is my only one interest over the last time. So at some stage, I believe we will be meeting in a virtual environment as avatars rather than in a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't, but let's save this session and then rewatch it a year later.
Excellent. We can look at this at Christmas 2024 of which ones we got right and got wrong. So you've got your thoughts around the metaverse, which I agree with. I think that's got massive potential. Johannes, what you're thinking about 2024?
Yeah, I guess obviously DePIN. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard not to be optimistic in this space. Putting aside all the kind of negative aspects of our industry, there's so many positive things, and the fact that we're always just pushing forward, we're at the bleeding edge of like tech, and we've got so many great people working on great stuff. Everything that Hugo said and Lena said, they could all have their moment next year, or it could be something else, or it could be something new that we haven't come across yet. So yeah, it's just, I mean, it's always exciting. But yeah, for me, I think I see a lot of traction in the DePIN space. The fact that there is a product market fit, and we are starting to align different aspects of crypto, as you said, with your trifecta. Or I just see I see that building more and more. Of course, real world assets. That's been a big narrative this year. I guess we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, though. It's the possible hurdles in regards to regulation, and all kind of great minds like yourself and other people that I've heard speak about that, who are actually a bit more grounded and actually know about the space. I feel like they might be quite big hurdles to overcome, but if I was going to speak positively, the thing that's going really well in regards to that at the moment is what DAI is doing, and purchasing the T-bills and then incorporating that back into the SDAI. And that's basically the American government buying our crypto. So so it's already proven itself that it can work. So hopefully see that space grow. But yeah, just hopefully less scams and a lot more kind of product market fit. And yeah, things like NFTs, hopefully we can use NFTs for like things like deeds and whatnot, and because that's an actual case there, like there it's kind of a low hanging fruit. So so yeah, hopefully we move that. But I think we're having when the price goes up, everyone kind of forgets about that, and I feel like it might be, yeah, as long as the macro kind of holds up the way it is at the moment, I feel like everyone's going to be distracted with just the price going up and just trying to make as much money as possible. And yeah, so, yeah. I'm a bit of a pessimist, so yeah, I can help myself at the end there. So.
That's right, and it's great to get the views there as well, because I agree with all of them, absolutely. You know, and the thing I always find interesting about the crypto space is that about every 12 months there's a new cycle of something new. So you know, you go back to the early 2000s, that where you had like Bitcoin was the thing. Then in 2014, smart contracts and Ethereum. Then in 2017, 2018, ICOs was the next big thing. And then you had the DeFi cycle, the NFT cycle, real world assets, as you say, definitely the thing. The challenge I always find with real world assets is that you're having to face two different regulatory environments when you're dealing with real world assets. you're having to deal with the regulatory environment to deal with crypto and the regulatory environment that deal with the real world assets. And I think that's why there are problems with that. But I think in some ways that's going to be a massive growth area for 2024. And funnily enough, I think real world assets, tokenization, and as Elena says, the metaverse may be an alternative trifecta of it's a way of connecting the physical to the digital world. And funnily enough, as Elena was saying, the idea of meeting with avatars and all this kind of thing is something that I've been suggesting for a few years now. So we'll see where it goes. So I think, as always, whoever said it originally about technology always takes longer than you expect but has a bigger impact, I think we're going to see more of that in 2024. So we'll see anyway. Folks, a really interesting session. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, because it was always good fun. I'll thank you for all your contributions and efforts, and for those who've been on previously as well, thanks for coming back. Been really great. Have a fantastic Christmas, and we will meet again in the new year. Have a great one, folks. Bye for now.
Merry Christmas.